Good morning, everybody. Mike's MMA Picks here, checking in with you on this Saturday morning where we have the sun shining and UFC Vegas 69 on the horizon. 11 fights, 10 of which are expected to end inside the distance. This is a interesting card today in that we have some UFC retreads. We have fighters with known cardio issues, fighters who are capable of breaking. We've seen it firsthand. Fighters with durability issues, some aging fighters, fighters who have spent time on the Contender Series, fighters who we cannot trust, some fighters who we can trust with our hard-earned money, and one of the lower caliber cards of the year. So I advise to proceed with caution, pick your spots. And without further ado, let's get into the card. First fight of the night, Juan Camilo Ronderos, coming in as a plus 255 underdog. This is a fighter who's spent a lot of time outside of the octagon, had, I believe, a suspension. Not the best flyweight out there. And he, as far as skills go, doesn't have a high level at any particular area. He will come forward, and we saw against David Dvorak, got run through. He's facing a Contender Series alum, Clayton Carpenter, who is young, very young. Both of these fighters, look at their combined total fights as far as their careers go, 4-1, and you have a 6-0 fighter. Carpenter was a minus 300 or so favorite on Contender Series. Was in a dogfight for a while. I am not completely sold on Carpenter. I got to be honest. I watched back the tape, and from a strength perspective, doesn't seem like he's an overly physical fighter. I don't trust his chin, and doesn't overwhelm me. The tape doesn't jump out at me when I'm watching Clayton Carpenter. So when you're trying to back a minus 300 favorite, I'm not liking what I'm seeing. So I have no play on the fight, and I'm passing here, but I'm going to be picking Carpenter. Ronderos leaves a lot to be desired when you're watching the film too, even on the regional scene. I mean, he's a young fighter. Both of these guys in their mid-20s. So maybe there is some room for growth. I see Carpenter. I know he's been groomed for this moment, but I'm not overly impressed with his skill set. I see on my timeline a lot of people appear to be parlaying Carpenter, and I'm not feeling it. Next fight up, we have Themba Gorimbo, South African fighter, taking on AJ Fletcher. AJ Fletcher, we've seen against Andrade, had some significant success early with Dustin Poirier in his corner, against Matt Semmelsberger as well, and then hit a wall. And he hit a wall against Andrade at altitude. Had moments in that fight. Gorimbo, you want to talk about a fighter that does not pass the eye test when watching tape? He's one of those fighters. I do not trust Gorimbo. I know he has a full camp here. Was supposed to be fighting Billy Goff, I believe. But Fletcher, I haven't seen much as far as social media goes in regards to Fletcher. Haven't heard any interviews. So he's coming out on short notice here, made the weight, looks great on the scales. Has, despite not coming from a long lineage of wrestling or a wrestling pedigree that is that is credentialed. He does have wrestling, and Fletcher could put Greenbow on his back. Now, there's a massive, massive discrepancy in reach here. Greenbow, I believe that's a 9-inch reach or so. Yeah, I don't like Greenbow's. He's explosive. I'll say that he's Greenbow explosive, but we've seen he's been knocked out on the regional scene. He's been knocked out, I believe, as an amateur as well. Been finished a few times. Fletcher, I see him running through Greenbow here, and I'll be picking Fletcher to win. I also had a free play posted on Fletcher at minus 250 money line, and then also fight doesn't go the distance at minus 186. So take a look at the fight doesn't go the distance line. I believe is still it may be still playable. Fletcher is going to be the pick. I think that he had a bit of a raw deal on in the Semmelsberger fight. We saw that he had a very, very bright future, and I just don't want to see him take too much damage, and that's a real possibility here. Fletcher has taken a lot of damage in this past couple of fights, but I believe has 8 months between fights here. So give me Fletcher. I don't see Greenbow having the strength to get up or the technique to get up from the takedowns that Fletcher has. And also Fletcher's power is a real threat. So give me AJ Fletcher here. And I don't want to say he's a lock because there's definitely no such thing as a lock. But when you walk up and down this card, he seems to be one of the safer plays. I know you are laying some serious chalk there, but Fletcher's going to be the pick. Next up, we have an older fighter in Ovince St. Preux, who's coming up on his 40th birthday, taking on Felipe Lins. Felipe Lins coming in as a minus 215 favorite. And this is a dangerous fight because we know OSP still has power. When he commits, he can land and take opponents out of there. He does have his kicks. He does have his Von Flue choke. Lins is the more technically skilled fighter here. We've seen Lins fall off a cliff after leaving PFL. Still looks like he's got the physique, and he against Pratino, man, you shouldn't be looking that bad in that fight, especially down the stretch. Both fighters were gassed. OSP, another situation. You shouldn't be looking that bad against the carcass of Mauricio Shogun Rua. So I'll be picking Felipe Lins here. He has more left on the tread life. He has more skills. He has the volume, and I think he just has a little bit more in the tank here. But am I going to go out of my way to play Lins, who's proven to be chinny at minus 215? No, I'm not going to go do that. But I'll be picking Lins to win. Good morning, Martin. Good to see you. Thank you for tuning in today. Next up, we have an undefeated fighter in Hussein Askabov. Askabov coming in at as a minus 150 betting favorite, taking on Jamal Emmers. Jamal Emmers, the plus 130 underdog. Jamal Emmers, we are familiar with. He had some success against Pat Sabatini, has fought well in numerous fights, and does have a potent skill set that lends itself to winning mixed martial arts fights. The problem we've seen from him is he's been making some bonehead decisions inside of the octagon and has a tendency to fight to his opponent's strengths. Now, Askabov is a bit of a mixed bag, and he's also a bit of a unknown. I watched some of his tape and seems to pass the eye test, but the other problem is, you're talking about WWFC opponents. This is a real step up in competition and he's going to be under the bright lights inside of the UFC. This is a real fight. This isn't the regional scene. So am I going out of my way to back a fighter with a 23-0 record who comes out of a solid camp? And we know Jamal Emmers, he's fighting out of, I checked his Instagram, fighting out of Team Alpha Male. So Emmers is he's getting coached up. Now, Emmers, there's a possibility he wins this fight, to be honest. There is a path to victory here, and I believe it's through his pace and his grappling. Askabov, we're not really 100% sure how he's going to approach this fight, because he's come at his opponents from a multitude of different angles, and he's come out grappling, he's come out striking. I am going to be picking the fighter Hussein Askabov here, but I'll be honest, it's not with much conviction. It's difficult for me to fade a 23-0 fighter when you haven't seen them take a loss or seen any major chinks in their armor. So give me Hussein Askabov. I don't trust Jamal Emmers' fight IQ, even now that he's coached up at Team Alpha Male. Next up, Mayra Bueno Silva, one of the biggest favorites on the card, coming in at minus 475. Attention, this is a women's mixed martial arts fight, and you have Lena Landsberg on the other side of the fight, plus 380 at the betting window. Lena Landsberg is a veteran of the sport. She's known as the elbow queen. We don't necessarily see her throw too many elbows or win fights in that particular fashion. She typically ends up in a clinch against the fence, and that plays out for extended periods of time. We've seen that in a number of fights. The Aspen Ladd loss, she was dominated on the mat there. Mayra Bueno Silva, she's able to get arm bars, and she's had some bonehead decisions in her fights as well. So you look at these records, 9-2-1, 31 years of age. Silva's live for an armbar. Am I going to go out of my way to lay almost minus 500 on a women's mixed martial arts fight? No way in hell am I going to go do that. Lena Landsberg, 10-7, plus 380 underdog. Man, she's gritty. She's tough to get out of there. And I believe she had a child recently in the past couple of years, came back from that and has taken losses. I'm going to be picking Mayra Bueno Silva, but no play on the fight. I also would not be shocked to see this fight hit the scorecards. I've see people are lining up to bet Silva inside the distance, but Landsberg, she can hang around. She's I know she's no spring chicken, but you also have to consider, how is Silva going to get this fight to the mat? She does not necessarily have the best wrestling game. So give me Silva. I could see Landsberg making a mistake and then the fight ends up on the mat. I'll be picking Silva to win by decision. Next up, now this is a excellent matchup here. You have a fighter on the Contender Series, Evan Elder, who took on Preston Parsons, I believe, up a weight class, and he filled out up there, took the fight, I believe, on short notice, and put on an excellent performance despite taking the loss. I was impressed with not only his wrestling, but the ability to fight well wherever it took place, on the feet, on the mat. Granted, down the stretch, ran completely out of gas, and he's taking on a potent finisher in Azim Sadikov, who is a local fighter too. He fights out of Longo, Saralongo, I believe, here. Sadikov is a real threat when it comes to the striking department, and Elder does not necessarily have his guard up at all times. He's trying to change levels. Elder fights out of a solid camp as well. I am leaning towards Evan Elder in this spot. Down at lightweight, looking great on the scales, put in a full camp for this one. I see Elder, if this fight gets extended or if Sadikov ends up on his back, which we've seen Sadikov get reversed after having initial success, that is a concern of mine. So I'm going to roll with the underdog here, Elder. No play on the fight. Good morning, Moyes. Great to hear your voice. It's out there. Good morning, Rob. Pleasure. So Elder is the pick here as an underdog. Sadikov could come out here and light Elder up on the feet early and often, but the threat of changing levels here for Elder is what I believe is going to be a real game changer in that specific fight. Next up, we have the people's main event. We've got Alexander Hernandez taking on Jim Miller. Now, initially, when I was doing the tape and looked at this matchup, I felt fairly strongly that Alexander Hernandez was going to be the play and the pick, and originally got in, I believe, the low minus 180s on Hernandez. And the further I looked into this, I also looked back and I watched the Billy Q fight and others, Renato Moicano, etc. I faded Alex Hernandez successfully in a number of spots. There's a clear breaking point for Alexander Hernandez in many of his fights. And if he can't find success early, he is capable of breaking. We've seen it before. It will likely happen again. He's taking this fight on short notice. It's up at lightweight where he used to fight. I know he dropped down to featherweight. That was a failed move. He invested heavily in that camp, and now he's taking on Jim Miller, who's coming in as a plus 190 underdog. Jim Miller is a grizzled veteran, somebody who's been around the sport for ages. I've seen Jim Miller fight and have a very competitive fight against Dustin Poirier and others throughout the years. Go back and watch the Joe Lozon fights. This is a guy who's sacrificed himself to the MMA gods, and inside of the octagon, it's incredible how much work he's put in. So the deeper I got into this fight, and breaking everything down, it dawned on me just how much of a dog Jim Miller is, a junkyard dog. He's willing to go for it, and he, since overcoming Lyme disease, does have a little bit more in the tank than he used to, and I don't think he's completely washed. And that it doesn't say much here, but it did put me in a position to arb and roll with Jim Miller. So it's a bit of a wash here. I was able to hedge in that spot. I'm going to be picking Alex Hernandez, though. Hernandez is I think he's a real threat early, and he's got to come out hot and go for it, because if he doesn't, Jim Miller's going to be waiting for him like with a bear trap. And I could see Jim Miller winning this fight late via submission. But I think the more likely outcome is Alexander Hernandez wins this fight early. So the pick is going to be Alexander Hernandez. Let's see what we got here. We got another. All right. Now, you're saying Elder might fade after round one. that is a possibility, but I don't see it necessarily happening coming off of a full camp and down at 155 pounds. That's something you really have to consider. So this fight, we've got William Knight taking on Marcin Prachnio. Prachnio coming in as the plus 105 underdog. William Knight minus 125 at the betting window. You've got William Knight, who is a veteran of the game. Both of these fighters, same age. I believe they're 34 years of age. William Knight was originally in the 250s last time out as far as weight goes. Now he's back down at 205, and he's taking on a Marcin Prachnio, who is a bit of a glass cannon, has shown that he has trouble going the distance. Both of these fighters have trouble with their gas tanks. William Knight is able to pace himself a little bit better. William Knight, the heavier hitter, but does not throw for volume. Sturdy heavyweight. I'll be picking William Knight here. I know Marcin Prachnio has the volume edge, and that could be a threat here. But Prachnio, I don't think is going to have the gas to unload the clip for 3 consecutive rounds. William Knight looked like he was able to put in a solid camp, not only lose the weight, but I think being able to function 40 plus pounds lighter, that's, you have a lot more energy in the tank. You're removing that weight around, that 40 pounds less weight around for 15 minutes. I'll be picking William Knight to win this fight. And I could see him winning this fight via TKO. That's going to be the pick. Next up, we have heavyweights. We've got Josh Parisian taking on Jamal Pogues. Jamal Pogues coming in as the minus 255 betting favorite. This is a fighter who's coming off of a Contender Series victories. Pogues isn't necessarily a massive heavyweight. Josh Parisian is. Josh Parisian plus 215 at the betting window. Parisian coming off of cardiac issues, is a fighter who, man, it's almost seemed like he's at peace with his career at this stage in the game. Doesn't have much to prove. Was in there against Alan Boudreaux and was within a strike or two of losing, and came back and has shown us that, I mean, he's there to get beaten up and pushed around, and if you can't finish him, he'll come back late in fights. So this is a sloppy heavyweight matchup. That's really what it comes down to. We're looking at a very sloppy heavyweight matchup. Jamal Pogues, this isn't saying much. I'll be picking Jamal Pogues, but I do not have much conviction. I think that Pogues could empty his clip, and then Parisian comes back and he's the one left standing, and it ends up being a disgusting display. I mean, this speaks to the low level of quality of this card. Unfortunately, it's not pretty. So I'll be picking Jamal Pogues. I know he has 2 Contender Series victories, and he was a favorite in both of them. And he was fighting a guy last time out who was basically a blown up middleweight. But now Parisian, he's a big guy. So I think the overs might be live here. And I'll be picking Jamal Pogues. Next up, we've got Zach Pauga taking on Jordan Wright. The Beverly Hills Ninja is back, my friends. And Jordan Wright's coming in as the plus 230 underdog. Zach Pauga, minus 275 at the betting window. I don't understand going out of your way to play this money line. There's the likelihood of this fight hitting the scorecard is very, very slim. The odds suggest that as well. And this is a very winnable fight for Jordan Wright. He does have, when you look at the striking acumen, he has the skills to get ahead early here. And we know that Jordan Wright can fall off of a cliff. We've seen it happen many times in the past. And Zach Pauga, if he's able to get into the second round, if he's able to get halfway through the second round, so if that one over 1.5 is there, and he's still in this fight, then Pauga could turn the corner here. It must be mentioned that Jordan Wright's taking this fight up at 205 pounds, and he's got kicks, he's got punches, he darts in and darts out. The problem with Jordan Wright is his striking defense has come back to haunt him many, many, many times. And he's not a fish out of water on the mat, Jordan Wright. I've noticed the past few camps, he's been putting in a lot of work on the mat, but he just isn't built for fighting 15 minutes. And he comes out of the gates hot. I'll be picking Jordan Wright here. I'm going to be picking the underdog. I think that this is definitely a winnable fight for him. And I don't trust Pauga. Pauga, 34 years old. I believe both of these fighters are right around the same age. Yep. Pauga's actually 3 years older than Jordan Wright. I know he started his career, I believe, in 2020, his professional mixed martial arts career. So Jordan Wright, Beverly Hills Ninja is going to be the pick. I think that he is going to come out hot early. And the guy is a wholesome, genuine, nice guy. Watch the interviews with James Lynch and others. He is very transparent with his thought process heading into any fight. And I think that he's going to be I think he's going to come out with the victory here. I don't have a play on it, but I'm going to be picking Jordan Wright to win. Next up, main event of the evening. This is why we're here, right? We've got Jessica Andrade taking on Erin Blanchfield at 125 pounds. You have Erin Blanchfield, originally supposed to fight Taila Santos. Santos got injured. Now Andrade comes in on a week and a half or so notice. Made the weight. Andrade has been performing well at 125 pounds. Her loss to Valentina Shevchenko. I think it opened some eyes here because you look at Blanchfield's victory and you see the crucifix position and you see Andrade caught in a similar spot, unable to get up. And folks think that that will be applicable here. I tweeted this a couple of days ago, and this is what I believe, that there is a world where Erin Blanchfield comes out of this fight completely unscathed, wins, and she locks up a submission. But I also believe that there's a world in which Erin Blanchfield meets a caliber of fighter such as Jessica Andrade for the first time and meets a level of adversity that she's never seen or felt before. I've noticed folks on the timeline are bringing up fights that took place with Jessica Andrade back in 2015. And you have to also understand that Erin Blanchfield was, I think, 16 years old when those fights took place. So Blanchfield's 23 years of age. She has tremendous grappling, tremendous promise. You watch the Aldridge fight, which took place only 280 days ago, I believe, 288 days or so ago, leaving massive holes in her stand-up. Andrade is a bit of a pit bull. If you can't hold her down, she's going to power out of positions. If you can't use technique to counteract her leverage, you are in trouble. And also, my thought process here also is, if this fight plays out on the feet for any extended period of time, Jessica Andrade is the much better striker here. That is clear as day. If you watch the development, I know that Erin Blanchfield has a striking, she has a reach advantage, and most fighters do against Jessica Andrade, but I'm leaning towards Jessica Andrade here. I believe that she is the rightful favorite and that you should favor her in this matchup, despite it being on short notice. Andrade has shown us that she does have a solid gas tank. She fought a month ago against Lauren Murphy and was landing at will on her for 15 plus minutes. That fight could have been stopped 5, 6, 7 times, and she was not slowing down at all. Was stuffing takedowns left and right. Erin Blanchfield could take this fight to the mat and make this look so easy. But she may not. So this is a situation where there are no certainties in this game, but as I have watched 30 plus years of mixed martial arts, I believe that Jessica Andrade deserves a little bit more credit, and that she will bring the fight to Blanchfield. And we've never seen Blanchfield hit on the feet the way that Andrade is capable of hitting. This isn't Molly McCann. Andrade, just imagine for 1 second what Jessica Andrade would do to Molly McCann. So Blanchfield, yes, a lot of promise. I think that she still has a lot of development that needs to happen to her game. She could pull this fight out and make it look pretty. And props to folks who got in on, Blanchfield at great plus numbers. And I just believe that at this line, if you're talking about Andrade minus 120, or even there are some lines that are even better than that out there, that it's worth taking a shot on it, or it's worth just sitting on the sidelines and watching this play out, because this is one of those fights where there are no certainties, and you have an up and coming fighter, 23 years of age, who we've seen the striking defense of Blanchfield is an issue. That 280 days ago, she was getting pieced up on the feet by JJ Aldrich, and that is a concern. So I'll be picking Jessica Andrade here. I do see Andrade. She could get held down and could get transitioned upon and could get submitted, but I believe that she's the rightful favorite. So I appreciate you tuning in. Want to wish everybody a great fight morning. We are up 115 plus units, averaging only 7 units risk per card, dating back to early 2017 or so. So I'm not one of those guys who advocates for any massive plays ever. You won't catch me making a 10 or 11 unit play ever. Also, I don't recommend anybody going out and laying 20 or 30% of their bankroll or more on any specific fight card. Remember, 1 unit is 1% of the bankroll, and everything in moderation. That's the way I look at this, and I advocate for the same. You want to make the most of each opportunity, but you want to make sure that your bankroll lives to fight another day. And if you're out there risking 20 or 30 units or even more per card, that's a dangerous proposition. So just tread with caution, pick your spots. Remember, one fight at a time, one event at a time, 1 year at a time. I know some folks have other strategies for successfully handicapping fights. I just share what works for me, and and try to take a measured approach. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Have a great fight day. And remember to go get what's yours. Take care.